just had a chance to speak to the team before the first big workout. Any kind of a message you wanted to send to the guys to get them going?
You know, the message, the way we feel about the game never changes. I think sometimes the messaging does, just depending on where you think the ball club is or the age, or you know, and the message is kind of like, hey, let's go. Like, we tasted it last year, let's go. And I think they understand. I mean, they showed up really proud of the way they showed up, and we just try to always be honest. I try not to make anything up and just tell them how I feel.
When you say let's go, you mean we arrived last year, we got the playoffs, there's more.
There has to be. And regardless of what your payroll is or what your market size is, you got to go toe-to-toe with some of these teams. Okay, let's go. Like, I think we have guys that think we can do that.
They got the taste last year in Milwaukee, celebration. They also got the taste of going to LA and getting beat by the world champs. What do you want them to hold on to more?
Both. I want them to remember how good it felt to pop champagne, because it's important. I want them to also remember 3 days later we got sent home before we wanted to go home and how much that hurts. And I want them to remember both.
For you personally, did you feel any pressure last year?
Yeah. I think I put too much on myself early on, and that's not a good way to go about it. I feel way more comfortable this year, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't mean we're going to back off, far from it, but I think I have a better feel, certainly for our guys, as we should, because we've been here. But I don't think it's any big deal. I love this group. You know, I want to see us get better, yeah, but I love this group. You talk to them and you ask them to do something, and they try to do it.
You've accomplished so much in baseball. Why do you think you put pressure on yourself?
Because I knew there were some expectations when I came here, but then when it gets down to it, that's why I love getting into the grind of the season. You get all the firsts out of the way. You know, that first game is always overreaction and you got a whole day off, you got to sit through it. You'd think after all these years of doing it, I would understand it a little better. I don't.
This group, obviously the young core is another year older, but you also have some great additions that have come in the bullpen. Eugenio Suarez is back. Do you feel like this group has a chance to be even better than you were last year?
That's the idea. We have to. I think our bullpen has a chance to be much deeper, which I think is really good. You know, getting Gino here obviously doesn't just send a good message to everybody, but it gives us a presence in the middle of the order that is really needed and should really be helpful.
What was your reaction when you found out that Eugenio was coming?
I was just getting on I-10 leaving Tucson. And I told Nick, I said, I'm going to get out and run up. Obviously, I didn't do that. But I also called Bob and told him, I say, man, you need to know how much we appreciate this. And I said, I just wanted you to know, because it was meaningful. I mean, I was getting calls and texts from the coaches. Everybody was fired up.
You mentioned it. It's not just the production, the presence. How much do you think his presence can help this?
It helps the guys in front and behind, lengthens out your order. And the other thing is when he's not hot, you don't have to panic. Because last year we were kind of moving guys that were hot, trying to put them in that spot. Then they'd get beat up a little bit, and you're worried about developing. We're not developing Gino. He's here to help us win. And like I said, when he doesn't hit, he will. So you don't worry.
When you talk about spring and you talk about roles, Terry, it seems like you're still trying to find who's going to be the right person to hit number 2 in your batting order. Is that something you're going to be looking at all throughout spring training?
Yeah, I mean, truth be told, if McLean can handle it, to my opinion, it works out the best for our lineup. I got a little stubborn, I think, last year just because I believe in him so much. And it's hard in spring training to make decisions, like it really is. But if he's capable and doing what he can do, I think our lineup sets up really well.
I'm glad you mentioned him, because he's a guy that a lot of people have really high expectations for. Last year was hard. Coming back from the injury, the shoulder recovery, do you feel like Matt McLean has a runway here to play the kind of baseball you know he can play?
Yeah, I do. And the good part was he still played really good baseball last year. Ran the bases, he played defense, he wasn't throwing helmets, he wasn't having tantrums. And that's part of why I think we were so patient. But there's a better hitter in there, and I think he knows that.
You've coached a lot of superstar players in your time in the major leagues. You got a taste of coaching Ellie De La Cruz last year. It was a hard year for him, right? He had some personal tragedy, had some injuries he had to go through. What are you looking forward to in year 2 with Ellie De La Cruz?
The biggest thing we've tried to stress to Ellie is just consistency in his game. You know, he's always going to have to fight. Everybody looks at his tools and, you know, the bar is set so high. But if he can just take those tools and be consistent, they're going to show in the course of a normal game. That's what we're looking for.
People talk about him for MVP, whatever award you want to come up with. Does he have that kind of ability?
Oh, sure he does. But I don't know that sitting here in February saying it is going to do it. His play on the field will do it. And yeah, we got a lot of confidence in him. I mean, and the good part is he's a better kid than he is a player.
The rotation. People outside of the organization, it looks deep, it looks talented. You have to be excited about what you have in your starting rotation.
Yeah, we are. When you don't have pitching, it's a really hard way to win. You can win 9-8, it's hard. I think some of our young pitchers took big steps last year, and hopefully they got another one in them now because we're going to need it. But I also think we have some depth, which is also important.
You mentioned you don't like to sit here and talk about things in February that'll be decided in September and October. You think it's okay, though, for people to have expectations that this team should compete to win the National League Central?
People can think whatever they want. I hope they do. What I care about is what our guys feel in the room. Whatever prognosticators think outside, I don't care. What I care about is what our guys feel. And yeah, we need to expect to win, but we need to do it right. And if we do it right, we're going to give ourselves a good chance to win.
One more thing I forgot to ask about with the rotation is, we talked about finding the role for who's batting second. Is another thing to watch for in camp. Who's going to be your fifth starter? Because there's a lot of different guys that can be that guy.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out. Health really enters into it. We got some young kids coming back from some arm surgeries. You know, Williamson and Aguiar, they both look good. You got Burns that's here now for the first time, like full time. You got Louder that looks real. So we're going to have some decisions to make. And I told the guys that today. But we'll be honest and we'll be conscientious and we'll be respectful about it.
Okay, last thing I wanted to ask you, Terry, is when you look at this team and you talk about the expectations that you have going forward. You said there was pressure on you last year. The expectations are high this year. This young core that everybody's been talking about for so long, the Ellies, the McLeans, the Hunters, do you still look at them as young? Or have they been in the league now long enough, it's time for them to win?
Both. We are still younger than some of the teams we're competing against in some areas, but it's time. Guys got 2-3 years under their belt now. We can do this. They know they belong, and it's not just to survive, but to thrive. That's the idea.